Today we're lucky enough to have Fawna Korhonen. The government has finally decided to come on the podcast.
Bob Dylan, Prince,
Awesome.
Water skiing. But I think
Is
it's
it? Is it?
Then took on a role as a metamorphic specialist, Proterozoic margins.
Sorry.
Yep.
The what?
Oh, sorry.
Remember who you're talking to.
Between 3 billion and 2.5 billion years old.
They're absolute failures. Absolute failures.
Beautiful archway that has all these photographs, which are thin section photographs of rocks under the microscope. And GSWA actually provided most of the photographs in there. Yes, we've got the best facilities, we've got the best people, we've got amazing support, we've got this beautiful synergy between.
Welcome back to another episode on the Gold Room. Today we're lucky enough to have Fawna Korhonen. How did I go with that?
Awesome.
Awesome, because I was practicing it. I was out there. I was just like, am I going to get this right? How many times is it going to take? It did take one, but luckily we got it on the second one. So obviously the government has finally decided to come on the podcast. I'm so thankful. Thank you very much, everyone in the government. So you're the manager of the critical mineral systems at the GSWA.
Correct.
That's a bit of a bloody mouthful.
It is a very big mouthful, but well done.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So look, we're going to get into exactly what you do, the great work that you do for this country, and for all the mining companies out there. So, but we always start with the life and the times.
Life and the times.
Your last name, first name, and the country that you were born in. You maybe a little bit of family heritage. It's a bit of a mix.
Oh, I'm all over it. So I was born to hippie Finnish Americans. That's the explanation of the name. So we got the first name and the last name covered there. I come from Minnesota, the beautiful state of Minnesota, which is in the United States. It's in the very center, but on the border with Canada. So a very cold, rugged state, home of Bob Dylan, Prince,
Awesome.
Water skiing.
Wow.
Rollerblades.
Mighty Ducks.
Mighty Ducks.
I just remember.
That was actually filmed at my undergraduate college.
I remember all the episodes, all the movies. Great.
Ice hockey, obviously very important. Yep. So my Finnish American background explains my genetic predisposition to cold weather and very hot saunas.
Yep. Beautiful.
So that's all very good. I did my PhD at the University of Minnesota in metamorphic geology. So that's kind of where my geologic passion lies, is in metamorphic rocks and looking at the thermal evolution of the crust. So how temperature has changed throughout the crust with time. Very exciting stuff.
Yep.
Came to Perth in 2009 to do a research position at Curtin University, and then joined the GSWA in 2012, where I've had many different roles. I started out as a mapping geologist in the Gascoyne, which was great. Got to do a couple map sheets back when we used to do paper map sheets, which we've moved away from. And then took on a role as a metamorphic specialist and manager of Proterozoic margins. So we like to add like these really complicated titles to our business.
Let's start with metamorphic geology.
Yes.
Go. Explain that to me, because I'm just a simpleton. I'm just a bloody sparky. Rip into it.
Okay. So
how would you explain it to it? How would you explain metamorphic geology to a 6 and 7 year old where that's when they should be learning a little bit about it, right?
Yes. So a metamorphic rock is a rock that has been buried and heated and therefore changed. So all the minerals that were in it originally get made into new minerals due to these changes in pressure, temperature. Fluids can do this as well. And then if we look at that and we can figure out the types of processes that have changed it. So we can figure out the temperature that it reformed at, the pressure, which is essentially the depth within the crust, and we can start to understand how different geological processes have operated and what has happened. And then that tells us things about plate tectonic cycles, different geological environments. Say you were within a mountain range or in a rift where the continent was splitting apart. This tells us about
Gone to Wonderland.
Exactly.
I'm not totally stupid.
No,
I remember that from school.
Everybody knows some of this stuff. They just don't know that they know it. And then this, of course, in Western Australia relates a lot to mineralization, because these sorts of geological processes are what's driving the the mineralization that we see and ultimately mine.
Yep.
So these metamorphic rocks really give us a beautiful snapshot in time as to what was happening in terms of crunching of the continents, pressure changes, temperature changes, how fluids are migrating.
Pressure changes that like through movement,
Exactly.
rubbing of and that obviously causes heat as well, which
It can. Heat can come from other factors as well, but it's kind of those two variables together that really give you this really rich geological story, I guess, and are the driving forces for a lot of change that we see, whether that's mineralization or metamorphic change, or structural pathways that allow fluids to move and mineralization to form. So it's really looking at a rock sample can give you a snapshot, like I said, a snapshot into what has happened and at what time, and then that tells us how the continent has formed.
So to get those results, you're drilling, right? Or not looking at already formed structures above ground.
Yep. So jumping into this already. So we look at traditionally. So the Geological Survey has been around for 140 years almost,
Yep.
and we started out largely doing surface mapping. So going out on expeditions and actually mapping the rocks that we see. And we still do that. I mean, this is something that we still actively do. So we get out on the ground, we look at what rocks are there, collect samples that we then bring back and can interrogate either through various types of analyses. So that's kind of the small scale stuff that we do, but then we collect these huge data sets as well. So like the geophysics, that get airborne geophysics that tells us about the magnetic characteristics of the crust. We're starting to look very deep as well with different seismic instruments that allow us to get down to 250 kilometers below the surface. So we've got a whole range of data types that we use to inform on the geology that we see.
So obviously I can tell the passion. Where did that come from? How old were you?
I think earlier than I think. I think younger than I think. So I remember, because I grew up about a mile from the Mississippi River, and I remember in our backyard we had some limestone rocks that had little fossils in them, little shell fossils. And I'm not a huge fan of fossils now because I've moved on into more different rock types in terms of my passion. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I like fossils. I don't love fossils. But anyway, so there are these shell fossils in my backyard, and where did these come from? I live a mile away from the river. How did they get here? The river must have been much bigger. Yada yada yada. And then when I went to university and took my first geology class, we were out doing a field trip looking at essentially the same rocks in a different location, but same sorts of rocks. And I learned then that these were 400 million year ocean sediments.
Wow.
And so that these were telling us that there was an ocean there 400 million years ago, and that totally blew my mind. Yeah. And then I just started taking more courses in geology and realized that this was a science that, I really like science, but so here there was a science that allowed me to just be outside all the time looking at natural features.
Yeah.
And just absolutely love that. And then I remember taking a course in petrology, which is the study of rocks, and this was focusing on igneous and metamorphic rocks, so kind of the more crystalline rocks that we see, and just realized that was just a beautiful science, like just this logic, and it's a lot of chemistry, which I guess I realized I liked as well, and that you could take just this logic and this beauty of looking at what's inside a rock and figuring out this whole history that I didn't even know, like everything from volcanoes to mountains to the ripping apart of continents, because it's all captured within a rock sample. Like You can figure that out, and I love that, and I still love that. And most of the people at the GSWA love some aspect of that full story, I guess.
I remember being up in the Perth Hills. I can't remember. There's a big waterfall there. I can't remember what it was. But do you know the waterfall up in Perth Hills? Do you know what it is?
It's the
Les Moody Falls.
Yes.
You're like that Joe Rogan's backup dude. Thanks, bro. Les Moody Falls has signage all the way down to the bottom on the pathway. You can walk all around. It's amazing. And while walking around, I saw that they have shells everywhere, and I thought, what the heck? We are so far away from the ocean. And then on one of these signs, it actually says that the ocean used to roll up against, maybe 150,000 years ago. The ocean used to roll up against the big Perth hills in the
Really?
background.
That's really, yeah, okay. I didn't,
Well,
yeah.
maybe it
yeah.
was 400. Someone can fact check me.
Yeah.
It was. I think it was 100. I think on the sign it said 150,000 years ago. This ocean was rolling up on the side of the Perth hills, which heaps of sand. You know, all of Perth is covered in sand.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, if you look at those sand grains, that tells you this amazing story about, you know, what was happening 2.5 billion years ago. Like all the sand, not all the sand, but a lot of the sand that we see records this incredibly rich history that...
So you can go and take sand samples even and then find out.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
that tells a story.
Yep, and then we can even link that with how river systems have operated, you know, between Australia and Antarctica. Can be is recorded in that sand. You can figure out where the sand has come from. I mean, and that in itself tells you this really ancient history. It's totally...
As the manager of critical minerals systems at the GSWA, what does your day look like?
So that is my title, but I'm very much in a scientific leadership role at GSWA. So I am really trying to align the work that we do to meet our strategic goals, which very much are related around critical minerals at the moment and the energy transition. So
there's a lot of that pushed down from the heads of state or from a national level.
Absolutely. So those overarching priorities do ultimately guide and influence our work programs and the data collection that we do. But what is really important to us is that, especially in these changing times where things are changing so rapidly, and obviously the commodities that we're targeting are influenced by geopolitics and so many driving forces that are out of our control, and they change really rapidly. So we are responding to that. That's something that's incredibly important to us. But ultimately, we want our data sets to stand the test of time. So we are collecting data sets that inform on the state's geology and the geological processes that formed Western Australia and our mineralization. And those data sets, regardless of the commodity that we're interested in, will always be relevant and will stand the test of time. So that is really what forms the backbone of what we do.
Are you hearing a lot of antinomy?
Antinomy. Not
gallium?
Yes.
Are these the hot topics at the office?
Yeah.
They seem to be the hot topics with some of these mining juniors out there. We've found a gold vein, we've found a reef over here, and we've got a massive hit of gallium. And
okay, that's interesting to know. We're very much focused at the moment, I guess, on lithium, copper, rare earth elements. Gold is obviously going to always be very important to us. Those are graphite. We might start working a little bit more into providing some data sets that inform on that. But obviously, all of the critical minerals and strategic minerals are things that we're looking at. But it is really that geology and the geologic processes that relate to this mineralization that we're...
Once you get these data sets, right? Data. Once you get these data sets, then what happens after that? So you guys go out and find it, or are you looking at information based on drill results from other people, or is it a combination
It's definitely a combination. So we collect heaps of our own data. So and that ranges from very large scale data sets such as the geophysics that is statewide. We've done some amazing geochemical compilations from our own samples from our own work. We collect, surface samples and geological maps, and so all of these data sets of our own, which are very well supported by the state government. But we also tap into the data that's submitted by industry. So whenever a drill program, an EIS, an Exploration Incentive Scheme funded drill hole, for example, all of that material that is drilled after a period of confidentiality comes back to the Geological Survey and is housed in our core library. And that's an invaluable resource for not only the GSWA and the state, but for the industry as well. So anybody can view and sample these materials, and then that data that is acquired from those EIS-funded drill holes, comes back to the state. And then any other, as part of statutory requirements for industry, data has to be submitted back to GSWA.
Yep.
And we do use that data. I mean, that's an invaluable resource. And the quality of the data that comes in is really variable. So we do spend quite a bit of effort, or we have been recently, trying to clean up that data, harmonize it, make it all usable to everybody. And that that feeds into our data sets as well. So we've got, it's a combination of a lot of our own data collection, which is really, that's the very high quality data that we collect. So we trust that data. We know it's been collected in the best way, and that really informs a lot of our work.
Where are these rock libraries?
Where are the rock libraries?
Yeah.
So there's one in Carlisle. So it's a huge facility. I can't remember how many kilometers of core we have stored there, but it's hundreds, thousands of kilometers of core housed in. It might be. I think it's the largest core library in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow.
And then we also have one in Kalgoorlie. So,
I've seen the one in Kalgoorlie.
Yeah,
driven past it.
Yeah. Have you ever been inside?
No, never.
It's racks and racks, thousands of meters of core that can be viewed. Yeah. So these are public resources that the public can come in and view and sample. And actually, there's a really good, this is in the Kalgoorlie Core Library, our staff there have organized this beautiful display of all the key rock types in the Eastern Goldfields. So it's obviously really important for gold mineralization. And have basically an annotated example of all the key rock types. And the staff that work there are more than happy to walk through that with anybody with largely industry people that come through, but we'll step you through that stratigraphy, because they're really hard rock types to identify in the field, and especially when like a drilling program is happening and you're getting little chips of samples, and it's really hard to figure out what you're looking at. And our GSWA staff will walk through. You can even bring in a handful of chips and be like, "What is this?" And can step you through. Core, it's amazing.
Yeah, core trays and then little chip trays.
That is a hard job.
Yeah,
it's a very hard job to, and the rocks are really fine grained. I mean, they look like the walls here. And so trying to figure out the significance of that, how it relates to mineralization, our people help with that and have this just amazing resource that the public can use.
So we did touch on it briefly before, but the demand for critical minerals in this country is skyrocketing. What excites you the most about that?
I think in regards to what the GSWA can do with this and the future, I guess, of critical minerals research, I think one of the really exciting things that will come out of that is the integration of really large scale and multiple data sets to really help us understand why these critical minerals are forming and to help improve exploration models to find where they might be. But it's really, I think, trying to develop a holistic understanding of kind of this mineral system and all the different variables that go into forming that I think is really exciting. So, and that's, I guess, comes back to this idea of, we want our data sets to be, in some ways, commodity agnostic. So we're not necessarily having to target just specifically gold, but the geological processes that form all of these different types of mineralization.
Yep. From a scientific perspective, do you think that the rise of AI is significantly going to help or hinder this process?
Good question. That's a really good question.
I don't actually have it here.
Yeah.
But we've got someone coming in a few days' time to talk about AI in mining. I think it's amazing. Is it going to help or hinder what you guys are doing?
I think it is going to help, undoubtedly, because we are dealing with, extremely large data sets now. The volume of data that we have is just, we need AI to help us interrogate that and to help us visualize it. Yep. I think very much we need to be in control of interpreting that and harnessing the results that can come out of that. I mean, that needs to go through human knowledge. Humans need to be in control of that, but I do think it's hard to get away from the fact that the amount of data that we have and the complexity of data and the array of data, we can't visualize and we can't interpret that without some AI help for sure.
But then there's also the security side of things. Like, where are you putting this? You know, you use ChatGPT, whatever, and unless it's a large language model that's controlled by the government, you're just going to be putting these data sets into whatever language model it is that you choose to use, and then that information is readily accessible to, you know, if you put it into DeepSeek. DeepSeek's run and owned by the Chinese, and I don't have a problem with the Chinese. I love China. Ask any of my friends. I'm passionate about it. But the government wouldn't be passionate about having their mineral information out there in a
that's an interesting. But
security is important.
But we do have to, like, all of our data is publicly available as it is. Yeah, okay. So there's no stopping anybody around the world accessing our data sets. I mean, that's an important premise of what we do is, you know, the taxpayers are paying for our work. It's out there for everybody to access. So we can't really control that anyway.
Okay.
And I think with the large language models and the ability for AI to tell lies or it's just, you know, to convey things that might not be true, that's, again, where this human knowledge and the human you know, our ability to interpret the results that are coming out is absolutely paramount. I don't think we can get away from that.
Yep.
And I certainly wouldn't want us to.
Yeah.
But
you certainly can't trust
really
AI. I used it maybe about 4 or 5 weeks ago to tell me about some up-and-coming junior mining companies to keep an eye out for. And just for shits and giggles, really, I just bought some shares in these mining juniors. And that were meant to go up, according to my mate, ChatGPT. And they're absolute failures. Absolute failures. So, yeah, you've got to be careful. Don't be me. Don't be this guy. You've published documents. You're a published author.
Myself, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you want to go into that?
Yep. So going back to the story of metamorphic rocks and how they tell you, you know, they basically can tell you a snapshot of the temperature and the depth below the surface that a rock formed at. So I've been working all over the Yilgarn for a number of years now, and we've got...
Sorry.
Yep.
The what?
Oh, sorry.
Remember who you're talking to.
Yes.
Remember, I'll show you a screwdriver, and then you'll be like, oh, this guy, that's right. So,
No, yep.
Hopefully there's other people out there watching it going, yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Josh, because
I know. I want to stay away from the jargon, so thank you. It's hard to avoid talking about a geologic terrain, which we call the Yilgarn Craton, but it is a very large ancient terrain that is, you know, when you get to the hills and you get, you know, past the hills and you're in the bush, that's the Yilgarn.
Okay.
And it extends far past Kalgoorlie, so the eastern goldfields is part of this Yilgarn Craton. And it is extremely well endowed with a variety of things, but gold in particular. But I mean, it's, you know, one of our most prospective, mineralogically prospective terrains in Western Australia. And it's very old. It's one of the oldest pieces of...
How old?
It's about between 3 billion and 2.5 billion years old.
How do you know that?
How do we know this?
Yeah.
So we can date
carbon dating?
Nope. Uranium. Well, there's heaps of different types of dating techniques that have actually tell you different. Well, but we use the composition of uranium and lead isotopes. So when a mineral over long geologic time periods, some of the elements begin to decay and break down, and we can use the concentrations of those elements in there to essentially timestamp it. So it tells us the age that breakdown started to occur. And so we can date, or we can figure out the ages of rocks using these dating techniques.
Wow.
And some of the laboratories at the university, we've got some of the best facilities in the world in Perth to do a whole range of analyses, but including this radiometric dating. So Curtin University and both UWA have just top-notch.
Do you think that's why we have such a do you think that's why we have such a large percentage of international students coming here, because we have the best facilities in the world?
Yes, we've got the best facilities, we've got the best people, we've got amazing support, we've got this beautiful synergy between academia, government, industry. We've got amazing geology. It's the perfect storm for really beautiful and fundamental geology to be in Perth. And the number of geologists here is just it's stunning.
Yeah, but they are shutting down geology courses at certain universities all over Australia.
They are, and some departments are even folding altogether, which is mind-boggling, really. Because when you look at the whole strive towards net zero and the energy transition, all of that requires mining, and mining still suffers from this preconception that it's bad.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. I mean, and there's no doubt there's these negatives attached to it. But at the end of the day, if we want clean energy, if we want a functioning society, we need mining. We need the geological understanding that underpins that. And so to be closing departments and not supporting that work is it's very short-sighted.
Who does that fall on?
Oh, it is about, it's a hard one to solve, and it comes up a lot, but it is that early outreach. It's getting to kids.
I firmly believe that.
Oh, totally. And I've heard from, maybe it was a CEO of SciTech, that if you don't capture children by the age of 12, you've probably lost them. Yep. So it is getting into schools. It's getting kids captivated by the beauty of science, and certainly geology, like we talked about before, it's this beautiful science that I don't think it's hard to capture somebody's attention and imagination in geology, but it does. It is so important.
You certainly could. I think you should. Maybe you need to be out there in these schools.
Well, I do try a little bit, but yeah, I think we do need to prioritize that, because we need the next generation of geoscientists, and we have to get them early, or we'll lose them.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation the other day, actually at Diggers and Dealers, where it's a shame that, and I'm all for international study. I'm all for come over and use, as you say, these amazing facilities. We're in a melting pot of mineralisation, and we've got the education system. Obviously, it's great. Everyone's coming here. But how about let's look at turning that 70% international students and 30% national students, flip that around and still keep the numbers of those international students.
Absolutely.
Still keep them, but make them the 30%.
Absolutely.
And let's drive and put more emphasis into, I know you've come from another country, but, surely for our own countrymen and women, we should be doing more to year 5, year 6.
Absolutely.
Get in there and I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do think, I agree with you. Get in there young. My 10-year-old son had this is what I was saying at Diggers and Dealers the other day, when he asked me, why are you in mining? And I said, so I can pay for your school, so you can have goalposts at your soccer club. They're made of steel, so we can drive a ute to your soccer training, so you can have an iPad, so you can have a PlayStation. It's all from mining. All of it.
Exactly, and I don't know if that messaging is getting out there, or
it's definitely not, because he said to me, but it's not good for the environment, Dad. It's not sustainable. And I said, who told you that? He told me who told him that, and I won't say that on here. But he told me where it came from, and I said, well, that person's a dick, son.
Well,
and then I explained. We've got a really cool relationship. Like, heaps of people might watch this and be like, oh, you shouldn't put your children like that.
Yeah.
But
who are they to judge?
Yeah, exactly. Don't judge me. So, but I knew that, and look, it's just always going to be that little fight, that little argument of, there's people picketing outside of a government, outside of a building in St. George's Terrace, where I personally think, and I don't like to get too personal about what I think, but why aren't they working? Where are those people picketing time? I don't have any time. I'd love to go picketing. I'd love to take a bloody day off, have a moment, but I've got no time. Who's got time to do that?
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I digress. I digress. Political. The next one is for students and early career geoscientists. What skills or qualities do you think would be advantageous?
So obviously with that, like in terms of geoscience, a very good understanding of the breadth of various geoscience disciplines. So that's kind of a fundamental geological degree is going to give you a lot of that. When I do student networking things nowadays, one thing that I do really try to encourage students is to get into data science.
Yep.
So learn some coding, learn some Python coding, learn a little bit of these techniques, because if I could go back and do it again, that is something that I wish I myself could do a little bit more of, especially as we're entering this age of AI and machine learning. Having some background in that and some knowledge would be, I think, really, really useful moving forward. But you can't get away from the fact that you need to understand the geology basics.
Yep.
And for me, my background is in petrology, the study of rocks. That is a field of geology that seems to be dying a slow death, which I am astounded by, because that, if you can't, look at a rock and figure out some of the basics about it and what it can tell you, you are starting to really lose that connection to what that tells you in terms of geology. So it is really trying to keep, and I guess this is my wish for geology departments as well, is, those foundations, those fundamentals of geology, we need to be teaching our students those. We can't get away from that. So it is kind of this merging of traditional geoscience being strongly grounded in those original skills, those baseline skills, but then integrating these more modern approaches of machine learning, AI, coding, how to handle these large data sets.
Do you think they're going to be able to take photos of rocks and then AI will be able to pull it apart?
Yes, to some degree. So the way that we typically do some of our investigations on rocks is, you've got your hand sample, crush it up, you get the geochemistry, and then slice it up and make what we call a thin section, which allows you to look at the rock under the microscope and really start to see some of the details within, the minerals and their relationships to each other, which minerals are in there.
Can you fire me some pictures of rocks?
Oh my gosh, yes. Have you been to the WA Museum?
Yes, many times.
So there's this beautiful, in that that bit that has the geology, the origins section, there's this beautiful archway that has all these photographs, which are thin section photographs of rocks under the microscope. And GSWA actually provided most of the photographs in there. But it's not very well signed, so you don't really know what you're looking at, but that is just this rainbow display of what a rock looks like under the microscope. And it tells you so much information about what happened to it.
You presented at some major conferences. Is there a standout conference that you walked away from thinking, wow, people loved what I had to say and the feedback was amazing?
Yes.
Go.
So I think the most recent one that I did, which was really enjoyable actually, was GSWA's Big Day Out in Kalgoorlie. So this is a GSWA event, but we had some external mining companies presenting as well. But it's GSWA showcasing some of our work over the year to the mining industry largely. And one of the presentations I gave there was just kind of an overview on some of the work that we're doing. And I took that opportunity there, and when I presented that, I was in the director of geoscience role, so I was really kind of an overarching, framework as to what we were doing. And I used that opportunity to talk about things that were a little bit different, because we had all these amazing speakers lined up for the day that were going to be talking about gold mineralization, rare earths, all the commodities in the eastern gold fields that people were interested in. So why do I need to present that? I've got these, experts that are doing that for me. So I went off on some little tangents. I talked about hydrogen potential in the Yilgarn, again, this ancient terrain where Kalgoorlie sits. I talked about some of the copper potential that's sitting off to the east where the old terrain meets up with the younger sedimentary rocks, more in the desert regions, and all that's buried under cover, but, some of the potential that we have there, and just things that were a little bit different, I guess, to what people might have been expecting to hear. And that was quite fun, actually, because it just kind of, I guess, pushed the boundaries a little bit, made things...
When you start talking about hydrogen, what do you start thinking about? Twiggy forest?
I'm thinking about what's happening deep in the earth to generate that hydrogen.
Yep.
So,
are you thinking about what it can be used for when it's extracted from the earth?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly where that's going. Is hydrogen as a future energy source, so as a potential fuel, and that's where that interest is coming from. So it's really looking for the sources of natural hydrogen that could be extracted and then used as a fuel.
Yep.
But for me, I'm thinking about the geological factors that are producing that.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously, getting it and then transporting it and using it is a whole nother facet of that.
There's some great minds working on it.
Exactly, that I rely on all the other great minds for. Can't solve it all myself.
No, but you're giving it a red-hot crack. No, I like that. Look, we finish every episode with, we have of late, with the same question. What's the best advice that you've heard or been given?
The best advice I have been given was to never apply for a job that you don't want. Yep. So this was particularly relevant for me when I had finished my PhD. It was trying to decide what the next steps would be, feeling quite desperate. You need a job. What are you going to do? And my supervisor at the time, because I was ready to just start applying for, and at this time I was mainly interested in academia, but I was willing to go anywhere, do anything, just needed a job. And he's like, be picky. Like, don't apply for something you don't want, because if you get it, then you've got some really hard decisions to make. And turning down a job that you might not want, it's hard to turn down a job and then realize down the track that might not be the one you want.
Yeah.
So
take a job and then realize,
right,
exactly. I'm a struggle street
this
here.
Isn't the, yeah.
I don't like these people. I don't like the work. Yeah, that can be difficult. But I've done that. I've made that mistake multiple times.
I mean, it's always a learning. You're always going to learn something from it. But so I thought that was good advice.
Well, thank you very much do you have any parting words that you would like to pass on to me or to someone wanting to get into the role?
Getting into which role?
Getting into the role of becoming a geophysicist or becoming a geologist. We've got so many young people out there that just need a bit of direction, something that they might think, shit, I want to get behind that. I'm passionate about this or that. And what do I do?
Well, there are so many opportunities out there, especially in Perth, in the geosciences. So by all means, give it a crack, because you can't anticipate what opportunities are going to come along. And there are so many of them here in particular, but I mean, worldwide. This is a once-in-a-generation lifetime for geoscience. I mean, being at the forefront of the energy transition, we've talked about the challenges with the perception of mining and geoscience. This is a once-in-a-generation lifetime or opportunity for geoscientists. Grab it. I mean, you can't even plan the opportunities that will be out there. So if the passion is there.
What about an adult?
It's never too late. Never too late.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine, Eric Hill. He's co-hosted a few episodes with me, and he should go back to bloody university. He loves it. He is a passionate rock licker at heart, but he's just a sparky like me.
I do. Can I promote one more thing from
please,
GSWA?
I'd love it. Go.
Yep. So we do have this thing. I mean, and this is just one of many pathways that are out there. But we've started a bespoke, what we call the Industry Ready Graduate Program, which is kind of this way we're starting to encourage the next generation of geoscientists. But what we do at GSWA is we fund 3 students each year For their final year of university, either for a master's or an honors, we pay that final year. So we pay all their expenses. We, kind of work with them to develop these their projects. And then the second year of that program, we embed them within GSWA. We pay them a salary. They are fully embedded with us for 1 year. And we devise all these amazing rotations through all of our different teams. They learn all of our data sets. They learn how we do things. They've got more opportunities than you can possibly imagine.
Wow.
And so they spend a year doing that, maybe doing 5 different little mini projects that are, working with world-class people. We have an excellent coordinator that's looking over all this. Basically develop these bespoke, year-long experiences for them, and then they're released out to industry. And so we're only in the first year of this, of having the students with us. So we're in the second year of the program. But your friend should go back to school, do an honors, we'll pay for it.
He's smart enough.
Oh,
he's smart enough too.
I have no doubt. And then it's so many opportunities, and you don't have to be young to do them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. You're just going to want a little bit of will for knowledge.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, Fawna, thank you very much for joining me in the studio. We've covered some ground once again, and I hope you've enjoyed your time. I certainly have. Great to get someone extremely knowledgeable and from the government.
Thank you.
We've kicked some goals today.
Very good.
Thank you very much for tuning into another episode on The Gold Room. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.